Welcome to Savoring the Nectar of Life through the wisdom of the Gita. In this verse, Krishna says to Arjuna that aspirants may restrain the senses from their objects of enjoyment, but the taste for the sense objects remains. However, even this taste ceases for those who realize the Supreme. Today's verse reminds us that real transformation is not simply resisting temptation. We may force ourselves to avoid certain pleasures, habits, or ambitions, but unless our hearts discover something greater, the inner craving often remains. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl observed that people are transformed not by avoiding suffering or pleasure, but by finding meaning that transcends them. Similarly, mythologist Joseph Campbell wrote that when we follow a purpose greater than ourselves, our lives naturally reorganize around it. A remarkable example comes from the life of Mikhail Gorbachev. When Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union in 1985, he inherited one of the world's most powerful political systems. Many leaders before him had preserved that power at any cost. Yet, Gorbachev saw that fear, secrecy, and rigid control were weakening his nation. He introduced glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. These reforms encouraged transparency, public discussion, and political change. He knew they could reduce his own authority and even threaten the system that had elevated him. Yet he believed that a more open and peaceful society was worth that risk. His reforms contributed to the peaceful end of the Cold War and allowed Eastern European nations greater freedom. Although he faced criticism at home and eventually lost political power, he chose a higher vision over holding on to control. This is the heart of this verse. This verse tells us that lasting freedom comes when something more meaningful replaces what once attracted us. Gorbachev was no longer driven solely by the desire to preserve power. His commitment to openness, peace, and reform became a deeper source of fulfillment. Perhaps the same question applies to us. Instead of asking, how do I force myself to let go? Krishna invites us to ask, what higher purpose is waiting to replace what I cannot seem to release? When purpose becomes greater than possession, letting go no longer feels like a sacrifice. It becomes a natural consequence of growth. And here is the verse. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjyam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Thank you.